Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd, fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilma. Allahumma faqihna fid din. Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'an wa 'amalan mutaqabbalan wa rizqan tayyiba. Allahumma hdi qalbi wa saddid lisani waslul sakhimata qalbi. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. So the previous ayah, even before, just to do a quick refreshment, even before the ayah 190. So last one that talks about what yas'alunaka anil ahilla. They ask you, meaning the Sahabas, ask the Prophet about the moon, the new moon. So so Prophet, he's told by Allah that they ask you about ahilla, which is the moon, the new moon, or the phases of the moon. قُلْ هِيَ مَوَاقِيتُ لِلنَّاسِ وَالْحَجِّ. Say to them, it gives you the time of the year and of Hajj. Basically, the purpose, Islamic calendar works on the lunar calendar, and the purpose is for us to know the times of our ibadat, right? Like how when we start the new month, for example, the recent thing that we did was when did Shawwal first start, when is Eid. So basically, the purpose of the lunar calendar and our Islamic month and our ibadat, our worship revolves around the lunar calendar. We don't, it's not based on January, February, March. Rather, it's based on the Islamic months, and that is the purpose of the moon. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not created anything in vain, and it's not, of course, moon has many purposes, like it serves as a form of light. It is there for our for guidance in terms of like serving the natural purpose of light and beauty, but it also serves a very important purpose, which is giving us the times of our ibadat, which month is Islamic month it is, when this the Islamic month end, you follow the growing and the thinning of the moon. And the end purpose of this is that the purpose of the lunar calendar is so that we can follow our worship, and at the same time any person can do that, right? Right now we are very reliant on our devices, but what if there is no device? So when you look outside and you look at the moon, it serves as a purpose of guidance in terms of our ibadah. And why again ibadah? Because that's the whole purpose of a believer. The believer is in this world for the purpose of ibadah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He has stated clearly in the Quran, yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create the jinns or the mankind except to worship Him. So the whole purpose is ibadah. And one of the ways is the timing of ibadah. You cannot know when to. And again, the purpose of moon, in a sense, is that following the lunar calendar, it gives us, in terms of that, it gives us a variability in our ibadah, so that, for example, you see that fasting is not only in the summer months. It moves because you follow the lunar calendar. Like we don't have like June for fasting, or for example, like other religions, they have December. Like, other people, they have December for their own this thing, or April for this, or this Easter or whatever. We have variants. So a person, for example, is able to fast in sometime Ramadan comes in the summer. Sometimes now it's moving backwards. It's coming in the winter timing, the cooler. So you get to experience all of the ibadat in different times of the year. This is the beauty of our religion. Okay. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the previous ayah, he clarifies, he tells the Prophet, when the Sahabas came to the Prophet asking him about various things, And one of them was the moon, and the Sahabas were open to ask Prophet about anything and everything. So he told them the purpose, this is the purpose of moon. وَلَيْسَ الْبِرُّ بِأَنْ تَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهَا. So he said, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that righteousness is not that you enter your houses from the back. So again, this quickly, it's what is this alluding towards? It is alluding towards the superstitions. So one of the superstitions is highlighted in this ayah is that in the times of ignorance, pre-Islamic times, they also used to perform Hajj and Umrah. And when a person, one of the first steps after intention, niyyah, is wearing of the ihram or entering in the state of ihram. So when a person would enter the state of ihram, even before and they would do that even before in the pre-Islamic times, they also used to perform Umrah and Hajj. So what they used to do is if a person's in a state of ihram and for any reason they gotta go back to their house, okay? So what they would do, they would think that if they entered through the door, the front door, the right way of entrance of a house, their ihram will get violated. This was a superstition. So what the people would do while wearing ihram for any reason, they had to go back to their house. They would enter the house through the back of their house, which is basically like climbing the wall, because it thought that if they entered underneath any surface, like when you're entering through a door, there's a frame. Okay, that invalidated their ihram. And this is a superstition that people held. And again, like there is no place for superstitions in Islam. It's whatever the Quran and Sunnah says, and that is it. And even nowadays, people hold different kind of superstitions. So, and superstitions, and for example, reciting something so many times, or going, which is not from the Quran or Sunnah, and going around some place and doing certain actions and visiting certain tombs or graves of certain people and things, it doesn't make you righteous. Here Allah is saying that righteousness is not that you follow certain superstitions. وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنِ اتَّقَى. The righteousness is for the one who fears Allah in their actions. What is taqwa? To be conscious of Allah. So the one who's conscious of Allah, how does a person become conscious of Allah? By following the Quran and Sunnah. And that's really righteousness. Righteousness is not random actions that are superstitious or man-made. They're the actions that our Creator has commanded, and which is by following the footstep of the Prophet. So Allah SWT here is saying, وَأْتُوا الْبُيُوتَ min abwabiha. So enter your houses through their main entrance, meaning do things the right way. Do not try to innovate things just for the sake of being and thinking that it's righteousness. So here also something important is highlighted, which is lack of knowledge. Sometimes lack of knowledge leads a person to a lot of actions that are really not from the Quran and Sunnah, and actually causes a lot of inconvenience for people. So it's very important. This is the reason why we have to be educated in, of course, the worldly, but of course, the more than that, the Quran. We need to be equally educated in the book of Allah, what our Rabb is telling us, so that we do not fall into these kind of superstitions and actions that are just inconvenience and not a part of our deen. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. And be conscious of Allah, have taqwa of Allah, so you're successful. Success does not lie in certain actions or rituals, or any kind of, or for example, even following a person's forefathers. This happens in my culture, this happens in my family, so I'm going to continue doing it. No, if it's not a part of the deen, then a person should leave them. Leave actions that are not that go against the Quran and Sunnah. So here next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about here giving the commands of commands of qital, which is fighting. Okay, so وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ الَّذِينَ So fight in the cause of Allah. Who should a person fight? يقاتلونكم, against those who initiate war. Meaning a person can retaliate only when another person or another group of people, they wage war. Okay, وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا, but do not cross the limit. Do not cross the limit set by Allah. Now, what does this mean? Here, firstly, the ayah talks about, gives the permission to fight. And here, this again is being done in Medina. The Muslims were not allowed to fight and retaliate in Mecca because there were different reasons for that. The purpose was that firstly, the Muslims were not strong enough at that time, and the hikmah, the wisdom is when a person has the ability, and in Medina they were able to form the Islamic State. There they were able to form a constitution, and hence the ruling of fighting was given. Also, another thing in Makkah, it was the dawah. It was calling to people, right? So here Allah had commanded the Prophet to call people and do dawah before they migrated to Medina. And the purpose of that was that in Makkah, to get as many Muslims as as many people to accept and understand Islam as many possible before Allah gave them the command to migrate to Medina. Now here, if you look at this, the society that the Prophet lived in, and the Arab society at the time was very tribalistic. It had people would fight at any time, at all times, and for very, very insignificant and silly reasons. Okay, for example, people would kill entire families. Happens even today, even at the fault of one person. So here, Allah SWT is telling that what are the conditions of fighting is when a person or a group wages war. Number one, وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا, meaning do not cross limit, do not what are the limits that Allah has set for people? Meaning do not attack, civilians, do not mutilate. This is from the hadith of Prophet ﷺ. Do not mutilate, do not be treacherous, do not steal the spoils of war, do not kill children, do not attack women, do not attack innocent, do not attack places of worship, schools, workplaces, or people who are old, people who are sick. So this is when a person crosses the limit. Okay, so and fighting should only be done with the ones who have initiated and the ones who are actively involved in this action. Inna Allah la yuhibbul mu'tadin. Allah does not like those who transgress. Okay, so here Allah SWT is laying out the conditions for fighting. Conditions to, of course, Islam is a religion that is of justice. So it does not say that if someone is hurting, if someone is fighting, then a person is not allowed to fight back. But there are certain conditions. Okay, then وَقْتُلُوهُمْ حَيْثُ ثَقِفْتُمُوهُمْ, and kill them wherever you come upon them. وَأَخْرِجُوهُمْ مِنْ حَيْثُ أَخْرَجُوكُمْ, and drive them out of places from which they have driven you out. Okay, and here this is the command given. This is the command given after extreme persecution by the kuffar. So this is not wherever you find them, meaning here the ayah you have to put in the context of the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. After a long 13 years of persecution of the Muslims, after giving the Quraysh many chances, here Allah subhanahu is saying that if they attack you, you're allowed to attack them back, and you can remove them because they removed you from their city. And again, this also points out to the conquest of Makkah, where people when the Makkah was conquered, they were given the choice to either leave or if they do not leave, then these were the conditions, because they are the ones who had driven this was their birthplace, and they had driven the Muslims out of Mecca. وَالْفِتْنَةُ أَشَدُّ مِنَ الْقَتْلِ. While fitna or persecution is worse than killing. What is fitna? So when fitna here is referring to stopping the Muslims from practicing their deen. Here the fitna refers to stopping the Muslims from practicing their deen. What would they do? They would stop them from praying, right? They would stop them from worshiping Allah. And this was the uncles of the Prophet would stop him from praying, from and spreading the deen. And this is the birthright of any person, to be able to worship their creator. So here Allah is saying the people who cause this kind of fitna, a person is allowed to fight such people back. وَالْفِتْنَةُ أَشَدُّ مِنَ الْقَتْلِ ولا تقاتلوهم عند المسجد الحرام. So there are some places that are sacred, and one of the places that a person is not allowed to fight is Masjid al-Haram in Mecca. So if there is so in general, even any person who visits Masjid al-Haram, it's called Masjid al-Haram because certain things become haram there. For example, killing of any being, even an animal in that vicinity, or even plucking of plants. But here Allah is saying that do not fight them حتى يقاتلوكم فيه. If they fight you in Masjid al-Haram, then you're allowed to retaliate. But if they don't, then you should not, because this is a sacred place of Allah. فَإِن قَاتِلُوكُمْ فَقَتُلُوهُمْ. But if they do so, then fight them. كَذَلِكَ جَزَاءُ الْكَافِرِينَ. This is the reward, or this is the recompense of the disbelievers. So what do we understand from ayah number 191 is that people are allowed to fight back, and here it's not just only physical fighting, right? And if you look at the society in the way in the society of the Prophet ﷺ, it was a very controlled tribalistic society. People had to follow the religion of their leader, and there was no freedom of speech. What did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam bring? He brought the freedom of speech. He brought the freedom of ideology, to be able to think, right? And Islam does not force someone to convert, or for example to accept Islam. But if it's the logical religion, it is a true religion, and this is what everyone's freedom. And the people who want to practice Islam should be allowed to practice Islam. The people who want to pray should be allowed to pray. And hence, if someone stops a person from even doing these basic actions, which is who to follow and what actions to do, they should be allowed to do. And if they fight, then if they physically fight, you're allowed to physically fight them back. If they ideologically fight, for example, through pen or social media, then you're allowed to tackle that as well through the same means. But here again, from the previous ayah, Allah says, وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا. Do not cross the limits. If someone is doing that through their voice and trying to stop a person, then the retaliation should also come from the voice. Okay, and we should not cross the boundaries set by Allah. Also, again, because it's the religion of justice, even though in certain places fighting is not allowed, but if the other person fights, for example, in Masjid al-Haram, then the Muslims can fight back too. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning it? Because He's telling us it's not a sin. Otherwise, in normal circumstances, if some must, and it's also important, Masjid al-Haram is not a place that, and nowadays we see that this is extreme situation where there is fighting. And look at normal situations. Are people allowed to push each other? Are people, when making the tawaf, are people allowed to hurt anyone? No. In a normal in a fight, people are not allowed, in war, people are not allowed to initiate fight unless someone else does it and you can defend. Then imagine in a normal state when people have gone for Hajj and Umrah. Are they allowed to push each other? Are they allowed to, when just for touching, for the sake of touching the black stone, people are climbing over each other and, they're pushing old people and stuff. So these are something we have to be very, very careful about. Okay. In fact, compromises, breaking the rules set by Allah just to be more righteous. What did we learn in the previous ayah? Righteousness is when you have taqwa. If you can get through something, you don't hurt other people and become selfish to get to something. These are important things, especially when one visits for Umrah and Hajj. Hajj season is coming, inshallah, bismillah. So anyone who goes for Umrah, you have to be careful about these things because you should be careful about the sacredness of this place. فإن 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 اهتنوا فإن الله غفور رحيم. And if they cease, then surely Allah is all forgiving and all merciful. Meaning, if they leave the disbelievers, they leave their kufr and fighting, then you should also not fight them back. Okay? If Allah has forgiven someone, then we cannot hold them accountable for anything. Okay, the one who leaves kufr and becomes Muslim, then all their previous sins are forgiven. And this is the way of Islam. Fighting is not, again, in our deen, fighting is not for personal means. It's for egoistic purposes, or it's for capturing lands and things. The only reason one is allowed is to defend their rights, to defend themselves, to defend their land, or defend their religion. But not for greed, not for capturing more land, not to form an empire, only for the purpose of deen, for defense, self-defense of one's right to live in a place, one's right to practice religion. This is the reason that a person is allowed. وَقَاتِلُوهُمْ حَتَّى لَا تَكُونَ فِتْنَةٌ, and fight against them, and if they persecute you, وَيَكُونَ الدِّينُ لِلَّهِ, and if they persecute you until there is no more persecution, فَإِنِ اهْتَنَوْا, and your devotion will be to Allah alone. But if they stop persecuting you, let there be no hostility except against the aggressors. So if the other people fight and stop a person from the worship of Allah, then the whole purpose again is, if they give up, if they leave, then you also stop fighting them back. So the whole purpose here, again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala highlights, is not, if they stop persecuting, then there is no, a believer does not hold grudges against people for no reason. And it's never, when it comes to deen, it's never a battle of egos. It's not a battle of power. It's not a battle of who is more powerful, who is more aggressive, who can exert more power. No, it's only for defending a person's right. A person's allowed to fight when their right and the rights of people around them is being taken. And that is the whole purpose that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows people to fight again. الشهر الحرام بشهر الحرام. There will be retaliation in the sacred month for an offense in a sacred month. وَالْحُرُمَاتِ الْقِصَاص, and all violations will bring about retaliation. Okay, so meaning, if there is, so if what are the sacred months of Islam? Muharram, Rajab, Zulqaidah, and Dhul-Hijjah. And it is not allowed to fight in the haram months. Okay, and this happened even before prophethood. Okay, so here Allah is saying, if someone fights you in these months, you're allowed to retaliate. Just the way if someone fights someone in Masjid al-Haram, they're allowed to retaliate. Al-Hurumatu Qisas. And for every hurma. What is hurma? Hurma is anything that requires respect. Hurma, here, the word hurma, anything that requires respect, where respect or mannerism is necessary, meaning human life, like things that are sacred. human life, human wealth, human haram months, and some places like Masjid al-Haram. So for if a person does, whoever kills in the sacred month, then that person will that person will also uh, receive the retaliation in that month as well. But if someone does and if someone does unnecessarily takes the life of another person, takes the fights in a sacred place, or tries to take the rights of people and their mal, takes their wealth unnecessarily and for no right, then there is qisas, meaning they have to pay. There is a payment for it. Just like when a person, for example, is killed in Islam and unlawfully is killed, when a person commits murder, we learned in the previous ayat, for murder, qisas needs to be paid. What is the qisas? Either it's if the family wants that person to be persecuted, the murderer, then that person would be persecuted, or they can choose to take accept the blood money, and that is called qisas. Okay, فَمَنِ اعْتَدَى عَلَيْكُمْ, and if anyone attacks you, retaliate in the same manner. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Be mindful of Allah. So here Allah is telling us that when a person is taking a retribution, when a person is retaliating, then a person has to be careful of Allah, conscious of Allah. Again, it is mentioned that Allah loves those who are conscious of Allah. Okay? So so the Islamic idea is not that we initiate or begin zulm. We do something, we violate. So don't violate the rights of others and the sanctity of Islam. Okay, a person's respect, we should not initiate by backbiting, even small things like backbiting. We should not be the ones. And if someone does that, okay, if someone is doing that, then we have to take, even if, for example, even in murder, for example, the retaliation of murder, if that murderer, you have accepted, what we learned previously is that if you have you have agreed to accept the blood money from the murderer, then you have to forgive the murderer. You can't accept the blood money and keep reminding the murderer. What if they ask forgiveness from Allah? You can't keep reminding them or hurting their families or making life miserable for the family members of the person who has committed a crime or a sin. And you keep, even after they have done what is Islamically required of them. So here Allah is saying, "Wattaqullah," have consciousness of Allah. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. Allah is with those who are conscious of Allah. And from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, Abdullah bin Umar reported, Prophet ﷺ said he was circling around the Kaaba saying, "How pure are you and how pure is your fragrance?" That means he was going around the Kaaba and he was admiring the Kaaba and how great you are and how great is your sanctity. Meaning how great the Kaaba is, how significant the Kaaba is. By the one in whose hand is the soul of Muhammad, the sanctity of a believer is greater to Allah than your sanctity. Meaning the sacredness of a human being, the respect, the honor, the wealth, the life is of a person is more beloved to Allah than the Kaaba. So just for even what we learn from this is just for, and imagine keeping this hadith in mind. Imagine when people push and hurt people while making tawaf or in the haram. Allah has said that more than the Kaaba, a human life, their dignity, their respect, their wealth, their health is more important to Allah than the Kaaba itself. And as for mere performing of certain rituals, people hurt other people. So person has to be very careful. Okay, and for a believer, every matter should be related to akhirah. Even if a person is wrong and does not get paid back in this world, so what? This whole world even if a person is wrong in this world, this place is not for taking revenge. Because the ultimate, who can take the best revenge or who can take the best justice is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even if the justice is not served in this world, a person should know that the justice will be served in the hereafter. And even nowadays, we see what's happening in the world. You think that no form of justice can, in this world, will be just enough for the crimes of certain human beings. The kind of killing, the kind of pain that is induced to people. You think that even if the most amount of justice is served, is it enough? No, because the ultimate justice is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for example, a small example of this is when a person has killed a number of people. The real justice would be that this person dies that many times as well, right? If a person has killed 10 people, then the real justice, that person has to die 10 times, but that's not possible in this dunya. The maximum punishment that they can receive is one death, and that's the end of their life. But in the hereafter, that's what they would, unless they repent, that is what they would get in the hereafter. And that's the ultimate justice of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cause a person to die, then bring them to life, then cause them to die, then bring them to life because of all the things that a person has committed. So have taqwa whenever you're dealing here, when you're dealing with people, even when places and things in situation when a person is wronged, they should be conscious of Allah. And when they're taking a retribution or retaliating, they're conscious of Allah. And subhanAllah, when any kind of group or army, they apply these rulings of Islam, the real rulings, imagine how just that place or how harmonious that place would be. Like just looking at these ayats of the Quran, that really makes a person think that, the one who's really a muttaqi, the one who really has consciousness of Allah, they can never unnecessarily hurt anyone. Then here, وَأَنْفِقُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, and spend in the cause of Allah. وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى تَهْلُكَةٍ, and do not let your own hands throw you in destruction by withholding. So sadaqah meaning spend in the way of Allah and in the khidmah, in the service of deen. And what does it mean to throw away by your hands? And to throw away, don't let your own hands throw you into destruction. Meaning, when a person does not spend in the time of spending, then what happens? What happens when we think of spending? We think about our own wealth and what it does to us, and but when we're spending really, especially in the way of Allah, we're doing a favor to our own selves. Of course, there's ultimate reward for a person, but more than the reward, also there's a reward in the hereafter, of course, because when a person spends in the way of Allah, they're giving their money to Allah, not to a particular organization or people or this thing. It's given to Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it's like a loan with me, and I'm going to return you. But at the same time, when a person spends in the way of Allah, then and in the cause of Allah, what are they doing to the society as a whole? So basically, they're building a society. Like for example, a person when they're spending in the causes of Allah, let's say in the places where knowledge of the book of Allah is given, what happens to people around them? What happens to the society? What happens to the community? The community gets more beautiful. The community gets more better. So meaning they're actually investing for themselves and their children. Now their children can thrive in a place where there is opportunities to have good, righteous friends. People complain a lot, our surrounding is such, we live in a community, we live in a country, is this, well, what have we done to make this place, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put us in places, for there is a reason for why we are here. each one of us, why we're living in this place, why we're living in this country, it's not meaningless. It's not just because our parents chose to, some of us are born here, so some of our parents migrated. So, but any of the reasons why a person is born where they're born, or why they came to a place, Allah brings a person to a place for a reason. And we can't complain that, oh, just because I live in this country, oh, I wish I lived in a non-Muslim, in a Muslim country. Yeah, if you have the means to do it, so do it. But again, even wherever you stay, you have to contribute to make that place livable for yourself in terms of the deen. So here Allah is saying, do not let your own hands throw you in destruction by withholding. When you withhold, what is the kind of destruction that a person is doing? Number one is that then they're not able to create that environment and that place for themselves and their families to be able to practice deen. We have to support the places where, or people or places that give the knowledge of deen. We're very quick to judge such places. For example, if they don't have the amenities, they don't have the facilities, why don't they have it? Why don't, of course, it's not supported by the government, let's say, especially specifically talking about this place or this country. Why don't they have it? Because they don't have the means to have it. Who is supposed to support them? Us, each one of us, to be, when we're easy, we, in Ramadan, many of us have visited the masajid and the places and found different faults in there. Who's supposed to fix that fault? The whole community. The whole community is supposed to come together and give and strengthen these places for ourselves. So we have a place, we have the people, we have the community that we can that bring us closer to Allah. So that's done through our wealth, through giving wealth and including the wealth in terms of money, and the, of course, volunteering and effort. Wealth includes that as well. Your mal also includes our talent and effort. If you're able to give time, people complain, for example, small thing about the uncleanliness of certain places or certain places of worship. How about we volunteer to clean it ourselves, or pay to, it's expensive to hire cleaners. So I pay towards that, contribute towards that, so the place is clean, so it's easy for us and for other people to worship. And wa ahsinu inna Allaha yuhibbul muhsinin, and do ihsan, do excellence. What is excellence? To do more than what is required. It's not just the bare minimum. Yes, ihsan is what, even when we do not receive the best of treatment, we still give it to others. We're not just good to people who are good to us. We're good to everyone. And that was the way of the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet said that he was good to those, even those who were not good to him. Even people who would speak against him on his face, not even knowing that he is the prophet. Then there was the famous incident where a woman was leaving Mecca, and she was cursing it was an old woman, she had a luggage with her, and just cursing Muhammad. And she did not know that this was prophet. And he helped her take her luggage out of the city, and he was helping her. And throughout the journey, she kept saying bad things about Muhammad, who she did not know was the person next to him. And then when he did not say a word to her, except he helped her, and he was helping her to carry her burden. And this was the quality of the Prophet. He would carry the burden of those, right? This was the quality that his wife described to him right after he received the revelation, and he came running to her. And this is a quality she described: you take the burden of those whose burden no one wants to take. And this old woman, she's cursing and the prophet, and she's unaware that the man who's helping her is the prophet himself. And she's like, he's brought a new religion, I have to leave the city, or something. And when she wants to thank, and she's like, who are you, young gentleman, you've helped me so much. And then he introduced himself, that I'm the person, you were speaking about. So such kind of behavior of a person, this is ihsan, to do good even at the times of And ihsan in spending, we're talking about spending here, right? What is ihsan in spending? To spend even when we're not capable of. To spend in all times. To spend openly, to spend when a person is to spend in open, to spend in secret, to spend when a person is in difficulty, to spend when a person is in times of ease. To do things which are not equal to how we receive it. Yeah, I'm going to spend because I'm rich. Yeah, I'm going to spend because I got a paycheck. No, you're at the end of your month, paycheck is almost done. You have a few dollars left, but you still give it. Inna Allah yuhibbul muhsinin, because Allah loves those. Who are the people that Allah loves? Among the people that Allah loves are the muhsin, the one who does good with excellence. The one who does muhsin comes from husn. Husn is beauty. To bring beauty in a person's action. You just don't do actions for the sake of actions. You do them because you add beauty to them. Right? And so here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that especially when a person spends on deen, especially when a person the whole society becomes more beautiful in general. And here Islam is not a society that is based on individualism. We live in a community and we support the community and we work towards it. And even when we're giving to a masjid or an organization or a person, do not think that you're helping them. Think about you're helping yourself and your children. Only when these communities and the organizations and places get stronger, it's only for our benefit. Otherwise, what is the opposite of it? Is fitna, right? We learned the previous ayat is fitna. What is fitna? That wrong ideology comes in. Then we complain, our children are like this, our siblings are like this, we don't have access to this. Why don't we have it? Why can't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the ability to have these kind of environment to create that in our homes and outside? But why don't we have it? Because we don't support it. We expect other people to do it for us, and we can spend in a lot of other things, a lot of wasteful things. A lot of us even have useless subscriptions. They're really not of really no benefit. If we were to just take out and cancel those subscriptions and put our money towards doing for the sake of the service of the deen, then how much benefit, not in just our dunya would become better, our akhirah is becoming better. You're getting reward in you're getting benefit in the dunya, right? Imagine when people get connected to deen, the whole, even on a smaller level, the whole family becomes harmonious. There is less of diseases of the heart. There's less of those they're lesser of conflicts. Children live in harmony with the parents live in harmony with the children. So all of this, it makes the how just a small household becomes so much more peaceful. It doesn't mean the problems go away. Tests are a part of life. But when a person has the understanding of deen, when the family has understanding of deen, they understand each and everyone's rights and responsibilities. And when everyone's fulfilling the rights and responsibilities, then it brings harmony and barakah and the blessings of Allah in the house. And that can only happen when places or things or places of knowledge are being supported, for example. Right? And similarly, spending on family members as well. Here, anfiqu also means spending. When a person spends on their own children, they're only benefiting their children. When a person spends on their cousins' children, their uncle's children, they're not only spending on them, they're also strengthening the ties of kinship. So you get two benefits out of it. Okay, so if we're able to think, for example, like that, and so here we have a lot of opportunities to do a lot of spending, and again, month of Ramadan has come to an end, but that should, as we began with this today's lesson with the idea that we need continuation of our deeds. Right, so the month of Ramadan is gone, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remains, of course, right? Huwa awwalu wa akhir. He's the first and he's the last. So he's always there. The month of Ramadan has gone, but Islam is, of course, alhamdulillah, in our lives. The Quran is with us, and we need continuation of our good deeds. And one of the continuation of our deeds is spending. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically, we need to continue spending. We need to continue giving charity. There are so many benefits to us specifically, and to in our dunya and our akhirah for the deen, and for supporting the ummah. Because if we don't support the people, then what will happen? The disbelievers will support, they will bring their agenda, and then we cannot complain about it. So spend in your local communities, spend especially start from home, start from your extended family, strengthen your family ties. When home is strong, that's the basic unit of a community. Strengthen your families, then strengthen the larger community, give to the organization, of course, spend on the ummah. Give to the people in need, give to the people of Gaza. No matter, do not think that, if eventually you're giving to Allah. Yes, do your research, but you're again, when the money you have given, you've given to Allah. Think of it like that. And make dua to Allah that whatever I spend, it's getting used in a beneficial cause. So give, for example, for Gaza, we were still collecting in the month of Ramadan. We were collecting for with human concern for Gaza. And if you'd still like to donate, we can share the link. And we should actually continue to give. Yes, month of Ramadan, our spendings were multiplied, our deeds. But here, even after, the whole purpose of Ramadan is to bring in these qualities in us. So again, we need to continue these actions. So let us continue even post Ramadan. So give to the local communities, and also give for the ummah. So people who are suffering, and especially to the people of Gaza, because they're in need, and they're in desperate need. Yes, if anyone would like to again donate, we can share the link for with human concern. So slowly but surely the trucks and their aid is reaching, and strengthening the ummah is only beneficial for us. Think of Allah, it's not giving to them. Firstly, the money is being given to, think of it as to Allah, and then to us, for our children, for ourselves. So we are able to live in a world where the deen of Allah is strong, and the people of deen are being supported. That should be our goal. Inshallah business. So basic takeaway from today's lesson is spend in the way of Allah, because we want to strengthen it, and it's for us. We're not giving to any person. We're not even giving to this. It is only for us and our families. And all of us wish that our children, our families are strong in deen. And how can they be unless we support the places that offer these kind of facilities and this kind of knowledge, and the ummah, the people in, we need stronger people in ummah to take the message forward. Right. So inshallah bismillah, today we will end our lesson here. We could not go into the next ayah that we initially planned, but next inshallah bismillah, the next ayah is about Hajj. And next week we plan to go over all of the manasik, all of the steps of Hajj, inshallah, through a presentation. So we will first go over the steps of Hajj to be able to understand the ayat that are coming, because it's important to understand the steps of Hajj. And of course, Dhul Hijjah is also coming up. So it's only relevant we go over the steps of Hajj, and then we go on to these ayat for next week. Inshallah bismillah. So we will end our lesson here. And if anyone would like to share their reflection, they can do so. If you have any question, you can unmute yourself or ask in the chat box, however you're comfortable. Yes, Heba?
So the lesson I learned from today was to always donate, help causes in your community, in your neighborhood. Don't wait for anyone. If you have the resources, you should help everyone around you, especially in your neighborhood, people in Gaza, anyone around you who you can see that needs help.
Yes. Yes, Sarina, Marina?
no matter how little like amount of money that we have, like even if it's $1 and we think we don't like have enough, we should always donate it. We should spend it like for the sake of Allah, because in the end, we didn't really lose anything because we get good deeds.
Yeah. And again, we're doing it for ourselves. Think of yourself, your family. You're strengthening your own family. You're not doing a favor on a particular group of people. You're doing it for your own self. We need these kind of communities and people. One of the ways of where we this is one of the ways that a person saves themselves. There are four trials, right? Mentioned in Surah Al-Kahf. One of the ways is what? To get righteous companionship, to have communities like that, to have places where you can connect with people. And you have this kind of, no matter where you're living, righteous companionship is only when we facilitate the places that provide that righteous companionship, right? So again, we're not doing it on anyone, we're doing it for this is important mindset. So whatever we're doing for ourselves in this dunya and akhirah. When we're doing the things of, when we're giving to the places of deen. Right, anyone else would like to share? Okay. Inshallah, bismillah, we will end here. And jazakumullah khairan to everyone who has joined. See you next week. We will end. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Wa barakatuh.